Oke, selamat malam, bonsoir, sugeng dalu. Good evening, everyone. Oh, come on, bonsoir. Oke, selamat malam. Oke, sugeng dalu. Okay, thank you for coming and welcome to our September edition of Evening Lecture on Human Territory and Society. And today we will have a really lovely presentation, basically sketches for a portrait of somebody that's really special, a French figure that has done so much in Indonesia, especially in Java, Louis Charles Damé. A life in Java in the turmoil of history. It will be brought to you by Bapak Jean-Pascal Elba. I think it's already here. And he's also been here for 20 years, I think, for now. Now he's really active in translation for Indonesia, French, and also English. And he's done lots of work about Louis Charles Damé. But before that, I would like to thank you for everyone who has come here, and also for Bapak Stéphane Dovert and Bapak Thierry Mare as the representation of a French embassy in Indonesia. And of course, really warm welcome for Bapak Aji Damé. C'est ça? The son of Louis Charles Damé, and of course the whole family of both Louis Charles Damé and also Lycée Français. Oui? Is it here? Everyone? Okay. Awesome. Okay. Oh, Ibu Asmoro Damé also here. Welcome, Ibu. Sugeng rawuh. Okay, but before that, our Kokak, Bapak Stéphane Dovert, would like to welcome you all. So, the floor is yours, please.
Thanks a lot, dear. Bapak-bapak, ibu-ibu yang saya hormat, dengan senang hati dan banyak emosi, karena ini di ruangan ada banyak orang yang banyak teman yang saya kenal dari dulu. Saya baru tiba di Indonesia 2 minggu saja. Karena itu saya akan bicara di dalam bahasa Inggris. Tidak cukup berani buat ada semacam pidato resmi di dalam bahasa Indonesia nanti. Nanti saja. So it's, as I said, it's with a lot of emotion that I'm here today in front of you, not just because I'm back in Indonesia after, let's say, a long time, and because I consider Indonesia as my second home. That's now become, again, my first home. This is one of the reasons. The other reason is the reason why we are here. I know Jean-Pascal for ages. He's very young. I am young also. He's even, but it has been for long that we know each other, and we have started together with the same idea, maybe, as Louis Charles Damé when he came at first in Indonesia. And I think it's something that unites all of us here. The same philosophy of what was the philosophy of Louis Charles Damé. The idea that we have to unify in a way or another, to have the transmission from a culture to the other, and to try two parts of the world that are very distant to be closer. If not from a geographical point of view, of course, to share the same spirit and to show that what makes a difference is so precious and so fruitful to a relation. And of course, Louis Charles Damé was especially talented. He had everything. The language capacity, he has been tremendous in various languages since his young age, and developing by having this opportunity to go to the Netherlands to learn the Dutch, plus then Indonesian, and then pursuing, coming in Asia, and creating plenty of bridges. And it's on the bridges that I think it's something that we have to remember. Bridges in terms of transmission, teaching, generating school, paying a lot of attention on books, on heritage. And epigraphy, of course, is part of heritage, part of the written culture, and trying to establish, to show that we have to analyze the world on long run and on interrelation in between different values places. And as I mentioned, I think that we are all from the same kind of heritage. It's all about transmission, and by mentioning transmission, of course, I think to is children who are here today, and thank you very much for this attendance. It's gives a lot of emotion to this event. But transmission, because he has transmitted us his very idea of the beginning of the 20th century that we try to assume as much as possible his heritage by trying to make this bridge lively, trying to make some books living, trying to transmit things from a language to the others, trying exactly what he has tried. But of course, we are not as talented as he was, but we try our best to follow his path. Now, there is somebody who is following his path more than others, I would say. In 1966, Louis Charles Damé could have met a little boy of 5 years old. He didn't, actually. And this little boy was Jean-Pascal Elbaz, who was just 5 years ago, before Louis Charles Damé passed away. And he took something from Louis Charles Damé, and his interest is not by chance. It's just because it had to be. It had to be, and he is now an expert, I think, thanks to you, thanks to the one who have provided information for him. He has tried to rejuvenate to the memory, and he will give us a really precious testimony of what Richard Damé brought to us. So Jean-Pascal, it's my honor, my privilege, my pleasure, as a friend, as a colleague, as an introducer, as a director of the IFI and counselor for cooperation for the French Embassy, to ask you to come on stage. And the floor is yours, Jean-Pascal, if you are somewhere.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Bonsoir et selamat malam. Selamat sore kepada semua. Maybe I don't need this one. Bisa. Okay. Ya, sebetulnya saya siapkan presentasi dalam bahasa Indonesia, tapi kayaknya mungkin lebih gampang untuk semua dalam bahasa Inggris. Maybe I will do it in English. Okay, good evening, everybody. Yeah, I don't think I really need to talk about Louis Charles Damé now, because Stéphane have given a wonderful speech about it. So I don't know. I'll try to find something else to say. Anyway, yeah, I've been here for a long time, and I've been doing many things. Among which being director of the French Cultural Center in Jogja, and working for the embassy also. But yeah, there's maybe probably a red thread between all this, and it's my passion for Asia. But I'm not an historian, so in fact I don't know why exactly I'm here tonight in front of you. I'm not an historian, but I had the chance to come to Indonesia in '90s, at the beginning of the '90s, and from the very first day I came to Jakarta, in fact, I met with someone who is here tonight, and it's a really great honor to be that is here tonight for this presentation. It's Monsieur Sudharmaji Damé, which is here. and of course his sister Asmoro, which is somewhere here also. So I arrived in 91, and from the first day, the very first day I came to Jakarta, I heard about Masaji, as he's called usually by his friend, and I came to his office, and of course I heard also about his father, Louis Charles Damé, and then we became friends, and I had the chance to become friend of Masaji. I learned a lot from Masaji, so much about Indonesia. In fact, everything I know from Indonesia, most of it is from Masaji. I learned so much from Masaji, but I was constantly asking questions to Masaji about his father, what happened in Indonesia for him, what was the condition of his living, and so on and so on, and not only to Masaji but also to Asmoro, and also to the mother of Masaji, the wife of the widow of Louis Charles Damé, Ibu Tun. And my question went on and on for some time, until one day Masaji was the director of the Museum Fatahillah, the Museum of History of Jakarta, and one day that I was in his office, maybe he was a bit tired of my question, maybe I was a bit too curious, till one day he said, well, if you're really interested in my father, then you go to the next room, there's some box there, and this is the archive of my father. Maybe I have no time to look after it, so please have a look in it and go on. And so I start to open the boxes, and the boxes were full of everything, lots of papers. Louis Charles Damé was a researcher, was a scholar, and he used to keep a lot of things he keep a lot of documents. So probably it will be the elements for article in the future. So opening this dusty box, I find lots of documents about, for example, how the price of the rice changed between 1950s and 1960s, how all the program of the Wayang Kulit were given at the Sukarno at the presidential palace between the 50s and the 60s. Of course, draft of his of articles of Louis Charles Damé, and many letters, and letters in a various number of languages, of course. And in these letters, among these letters, I found one correspondent which immediately when I opened the file and when I look at the correspondent, I had the feeling immediately that it was an important correspondence. The correspondence, of course, I will talk about it later. It's a correspondence between Louis Charles Damé and Claire Holt at a very particular time of history, because it's exactly it starts in September 1945, and ends in December 1947. But from these papers, a portrait of Louis Charles Damé started to appear to me, and from this all these letters will be published next year, and also the lecture tonight is basically based on the preface that I wrote for these letters, this edition. So let's start from the beginning. Louis Charles Damé is born in 26 March 1911 in Paris. You can see here this is the letters from his mother to Louis Charles Damé. The mother of Louis Charles Damé is Jeanne Reviron. She had a shop. She had a shop of music instrument and music partition, selling in the 16th district of Paris. His father, Henri Damé, was a butcher. He had a shop also in the same district. And from a mother who was selling, probably Louis Charles Damé grew up in the shop of his mother. So from a very young age, Louis Charles Damé and his elder brother, Émile learn music from very young. Louis Charles Damé will be all his life a musician. He will play extremely well violin, but could play also piano. And his elder brother, Émile, will become composer of music and also a teacher at the École Normale de Musique. So Louis Charles grew up in Paris. Of course, he went to school, but Louis Charles Damé was in fact gifted with extraordinary capacity, a memory, extraordinary memory, and also the capacity to learn languages. He had really a skill, incredible skill to learn language, maybe because he learned music and he had a very good musical ear. So, there's one story about Louis Charles Damé when he was in his teens. He was walking on the bank of the Seine, go to a bouquinist, which is when you can buy second-hand books, and there he found a Bible in Hebrew. Not only he bought the book, but also he booked with the little money that he had. He bought also a dictionary of Hebrew, so he wanted to translate straight from Hebrew the Bible to French. So yes, he had an extraordinary gift, and he will learn many languages during his life. He went to school, of course, but for probably economical reason, he was not able to finish his bachelor degree. At that time, the bachelor degree is in two parts, and he will pass the first one, but not the second one. But it will not. He will not. He will be able to go to college to study. And at the age of 18, in 1929, he enters at the prestigious École Nationale des Langues Orientales, which is the Institute of Asian Language in Paris. He had not his bachelor degree, so he had to pass a test. And looking at this extraordinary capacity of memory and language, he could enter the school, the prestigious school, and there he will learn many languages. He will start with Arabic. This is a list that he made for when he wanted, at some point in 1945, he wanted to go to help the United Nations and to work at the United Nations. So he made a list that I found in the paper, a list of this is a list of the diploma that he had. So he had diplomas in Arabic, in Persian, in classic Arabic, in Turkey, in Turk, in Malay, in Mandarin, and Sanskrit. But this is only the languages that he had a diploma for, because as an autodidact, he learned many languages. He could speak all European language, which is English, of course, Spanish, Italian, Dutch. He learned Russian. He learned Hungarian. He learned Irish, and till the end of his life, he was he was spending money and time to learn languages. When I opened the box, there were orders for methods, assimil methods. Wanted to learn Finnish or other languages that he wanted to. So he pursued all his life learning languages. We can approximatively give a number of languages that he could master. Like it was between 20 and 25. In 1932 to 1933, he had to do his military service. He was sent to Syria at the border with Turkey, in an area very close to Kurdistan. And because he spent 1 year there, not doing much, he learned, of course, he learned Kurd. And then when he came back to Paris, he continued his degree. In fact, in 1935, probably because he was in contact with the Islam world in Syria, he was very interested into Islam. And the first publication of Louis Charles Damé under a pseudonym, which is Jean Dinet, is a translation of poetry from a mystical poet of the 13th century in Turkey named Yunus Emre, and it's a book about the 99 names of Allah that was published in 1935. Seeing the capacity of Louis Charles Damet, two teachers in particular will look after him, in particular Paul Boyer and Antoine Cabaton. Both were teachers of Malay and Javanese in Paris, and they found a scholarship for Louis Charles Damet to study in Holland, to pursue his learning of Malay and Javanese. And so Louis Charles Damet will go to Leiden in between 34 and 35, and probably in Leiden that's where also he met nationalist Indonesian students who were already in studying in Holland, and that's probably his first contact with Indonesian nationalists at that time. Coming back to Paris, the same professor will manage to find him a mission to go finally to Indonesia. Why Indonesia? Probably also these teachers thought that the Insuland, which is the region which cover Malaysia than Indonesia, probably seeing the capacity of Louis Charles Damet, able to speak and to read Mandarin, Arabic, and Sanskrit, this will be a good area for him to study. So they found a mission for him, and Louis Charles Damet was sent to Indonesia. Louis Charles Damet arrived in Batavia on the 21st April of 1937. The mission that he had was to go to Solo to study Javanese and Malay languages, but also to learn about literature and civilization. So he arrived in Solo. This is a photo of I think this is Louis Charles Damet close to the Sultan Hamengkubuwono Dapan, 8. This is probably not a picture from when he was studying in Solo, but probably when he was working for the embassy at the consulate. But anyway, he arrived in Solo and stayed there for 7 months. Of course, as a musician, he discovered the Indonesian music, in particular the gamelan. So he started to learn gamelan, and also he was very interested into wayang wong and wayang kulit. And so the very first article under his name that time, the very first 2 articles will be published by Louis Charles Damet in Dutch, will be in a magazine Jawa about wayang wong. But also living in Indonesia, coming in Indonesia, he discovered also the dark side of the Dutch Indies, and he write in a letter, again a letter to the United Nations. He said that arrived in Java in 1937, I stood at friction with the Dutch because I didn't take into account the prestige that the whites seemed to judge indispensable in the colonies, and because I had more friends in Indonesian circles than in European circles. So after 7 months living in Solo, his scholarship, because of the crisis, economical crisis in France, the scholarship became less and less money. So he couldn't, at some point, he couldn't stay, he couldn't live in Solo anymore. So he had to move to Batavia. And in Batavia, he will be recruited at the consulate, at the French consulate, where he will stay until the beginning of the war. So he moved to Batavia, and in Batavia, he will meet somebody which will be very important for him, very important for his career. His name is Willem Frederik Stutterheim. Stutterheim was Dutch, epigraphist, and he arrived in Indonesia in 1924. What is epigraphy? Briefly, for people who don't know, maybe it's not familiar term for some people. Epigraphy is the science of reading inscription on temples, but also on tombs or ancient monuments. And Stutterheim was a very good epigraphist. He wrote many books, and becoming friend with Louis Charles Damet, probably Stutterheim saw that the extraordinary capacity of Louis Charles Damet, and slowly Stutterheim, which was also a very anti-colonialist, slowly the both will become very friend, and Stutterheim will bring him to travel in Central Java, especially the temple in Jogja and Solo. They will go together to Bali also, and intensive discussion will start. And finally, in 1941, Stutterheim will ask Louis Charles Damet to become his assistant in the Dutch archaeological department in Batavia, which is now the Museum National, the Museum Gadja. And so they will work together, not for very long, because in 1941 Louis Charles Damet will be officially admitted in the department, but in 1942, a few months later, the Japanese will invade Indonesia. But it's at the library also. He was sure very active at the library. That's where he discovered and met with a young and educated Javanese lady, Mrs. Sujatun Abdul Arif Puspokusumo. She was working at the library, and they both fall in love and married in 1940. Butun, as she usually was called, was in fact related with the family of Almarhum Habibi, and so they married in 1940. For the wedding, Louis Charles Damet will convert to Islam, and the one who will receive the Shahada, the Islamic creed, will be no other than Haji Agus Salim, one of the early nationalists, and the one who, of course, participated to the redaction of the Constitution of Indonesia in 1945, which also show that Louis Charles Damet has already had links with or was friend with early nationalists. So the Second World War have started. Of course, we are in 1940 already. Louis Charles Damet had never quit the consulate before going to the Department of Archaeology, but also he didn't want it to work for the Vichy government. He wanted to quit the embassy, and also he never worked for the Japanese. And but from the marriage, from the wedding, two children will come to life. Masaji first, which is of course on the left, is Masaji, and the second one Tamara, which unfortunately is not with us anymore. And the third one, Asmoro, we will see a picture later, born in 1948. So we are not there yet. So three children will be part of their life. So in 1942, I said the Japanese entered in Batavia, but as Louis Charles Damet was French, and the country which was invaded by the German, Louis Charles Damet will not be sent to a camp, or will not be sent also to Thailand, for example, for work like a lot of Dutch were sent to. So he could remain in Batavia. He had no job because the Department of Archaeological was closed, but he will manage to live in Jakarta, giving mostly French and music lesson. And unfortunately, his teacher, Stutterheim, dies of a brain tumor in 1942. Independence will come, course, after the capitulation of Japan, 17 August 1945, the Indonesian is free, and Louis Charles Damé will follow very closely what's going on in Indonesia at that time. I will tell more later when we come to the letters, in particular to this famous letter between him and Claire Holt. But after some time in Batavia, at the time when the Dutch come back to reclaim Indonesia, he feels that he cannot stay for too long. Also, he wants to meet his family because he's been in Indonesia for 10 years already, and so he leave Indonesia and go to France with his family in end of 1947, trying to find a job. But of course, this is after the Second World War. Europe is in very bad condition, and it's very hard for him to find a job in France. And somehow also he wants to come back to Asia. He feels that he has more things to do in Asia than in Europe. So he will do his best and find finally a job to go to Vietnam. He will go to Saigon in 1948, where he will teach. He will be professor of Indonesian civilization in Saigon, in Ho Chi Minh Ville. Close to the École Française Extrême-Orient, he has already links with the Institute of Asian Studies, the French Institute of Asian Studies. Finally, in 1950, he will enter at the FAO. This is Louis Charles Damé, and so with his Asmoro must be here, the little one in front. She was very young in Saigon, and so finally he will work for FAO, but will be sent in Hanoi, and we are in the beginning of the 50s. Of course, this is the beginning also of the Vietnam War, at least the guerrilla against for independence of Vietnam, and so the atmosphere is very tense. Also in Vietnam, and during the holiday coming to Indonesia, finally Louis Charles Damé will be opening the first office of École Française Extrême-Orient in 1950. École Française Extrême-Orient, which is still very much present in Jakarta now. So Louis Charles Damé opened the first office in 1950. This is the house of the family, of Damé family. In fact, it was in Jalan Sunda, few meters from here. Unfortunately, the house is no more. I used to go there very often. Asmoro was living there, and this is the house where the children and the family live for many years. You can see the house was full of books, of course. But from now on, living in Batavia, Louis Charles Damé will be able to spend more time, all his time, on studies. So this is the whole family. So this is Aji and Asmoro. So he will start writing the many articles that is famous for now. He will be very productive. First, he will work on the corpus of inscription. When Schutterheim, when he became the assistant of Schutterheim gave him the task to do the complete catalogue of the inscription of Indonesia, and this is a task that he will fulfill. He will work on it all his life, doing publication after publication, inscription of Java, inscription of Bali, inscription in Sumatra, inscription also of Chinese Indonesian. But the two books or the two works is the most famous for. I will say a few words about it. The first one is a méthode de réduction des dates javanaises. When he discovered an inscription on the temple, of course, there was a date. There was a date which was, of course, in a calendar, which in a Javanese calendar. And Louis Charles Damé will be able to make to to make the two calendar, the Javanese calendar and the Christian calendar to fit together. So it will be more easy to know exactly which are the dates of the temple of an inscription. This is one huge work that he's been working on for many years. The second one is an article about the Muslim tomb in Mojapahit. There are Muslim tomb in Trolorio, which is on the site of Mojapahit. This was Muslim tombs, and because of his capacity to read Arabic, he could read them and discovered that the tombs were not new. They were in fact from the time of Mojapahit, and it could show also that the Muslim was already part of the. Islam was already present at the Mojapahit time, and this article was of course made a great sensation. He will not only be busy with inscription. He will also be doing, because he was a great lover of literature, he will be the first translator into French of Sourate Kartini. This is a publication which has been republished by FAO a few years ago, and also doing a compilation of poetry, Indonesian poetry, contemporary from that time. He will translate, in fact, Tagir Aishabana, Shahril Anwar, Sitor Situ Morang, or Asrul Sani, in this compilation of poetry. He will start. Louis Charles Damé also will start to travel around Asia, and we have a picture of him in Angkor here. And at this time also his name, because of the article that he made, became famous, and so he started to teach also in France. So he was spending his time between France and Batavia and Jakarta, and teaching at the prestigious École Pratique des Hautes Études. So he was very busy at that time. Unfortunately, Louis Charles Damé had a rare blood disease, probably genetic, and he fell sick in France in 1965. We have here a picture of him at the hospital, and but he came at that time. Also, he managed to lose. He lose a part of his memory. I forgot to tell you that during when he was writing his article, living in Jakarta in the beginning of the 90s, I interviewed somebody which was the secretary of Louis Charles Damé, Bu Arifin Vinarsi. Maybe people who have been learning French knows the dictionary, the Indonesian to French, the French to Indonesian dictionary. Bu Vinarsi Arifin was the secretary of Louis Charles Damé, and she told me the incredible story about how Louis Charles Damé was writing article, and how he was asking Bu Vinarsi to look for reference. So Louis Charles Damé had a library of approximately 4,000 books in his house, and when he was writing an article, he will ask Bu Vinarsi to look for that book in that shelf. So he knew, of course, where the book was in the library, but of course he knew also at what page which page he could find the reference he was looking for, and not only the page but also the paragraph. So he knew he could ask her to find a reference at the page and the paragraph. So of course this is long before a computer was available. So he had this kind of capacity of memory. Unfortunately, when he became sick in 1965, he lost a part of that extraordinary memory, and he was, of course, very sad about it. He was also very sad of the condition of Indonesia at the end of the, in the 65. He could see, of course, the anti-imperialism propaganda and the radicalization of the political scene. And this made him, of course, somber and pessimistic. And in fact, unfortunately, he passed away too early, at the age of 55, on the 26th May 1966. He is buried in Jakarta, of course, at the Jaluk Perut cemetery in Jakarta Selatan. Probably too young to die, and too young also to make probably the important works that would have made his name very famous about studies about Indonesia. What I want to talk to you about now is about, of course, the correspondence. I was telling you that I found a very important, very interesting correspondence between Louis Charles Damé and Claire Holt. Maybe I should say a few words about Claire Holt, if people are not too familiar about her. So I will say a few words. Claire Holt was born Claire Bag in Lithuania, in Riga. She was 10 years older than Louis Charles Damé. This is her on the second on the photo. Because she was born in a Jewish family, they were forced to immigrate in Moscow in 1914, just at the beginning of the time of the revolution in Moscow. But she didn't want it to stay there. She married with an English teacher and moved to New York in 1921. There she got a child from her husband, Anatole, and but divorced with her husband and live happy life in New York in her 20s. She was a journalist. She was also she learned dance in Moscow when she was young, but she became also a dance critic. She studied sculpture and also law in New York. So she was very active in New York. But in 1930, with the wife of a teacher of sculpture, Angelica Archipengo, she decided to do a world tour on a boat. So they were going to cruise around the world, and the first stop was in Bali. So they arrived in Bali in 1930. At the time, of course, a very creative time in Bali. They very cosmopolitan and intellectual milieu. They meet with Walter Spies, Colin McPhee, Margaret Mead and Gregory Matheson, Jane Bellow, Rudolph Bonnet, Miguel Covarrubias, to name a few. And on this picture, for example, you have Claire Holt on the left, and Walter Spies on the right, and in the middle, somebody that we heard already, which is Wilhelm Friedrich Stutterheim. So Wilhelm Friedrich Stutterheim was a very good friend of Walter Spies, and he asked to Claire Holt to translate some article into English, and Claire Holt was supposed to stay 2 weeks only in Bali, and she stayed 4 months, but not only 4 months, but she lived for 9 years in Batavia. She fell in love with Stutterheim, and she stayed in Solo first, and then in Jogja, then moved to Batavia. It's the love of her life, but of course the history will separate them. So she moved first to Solo, and they will live together from 1930 to 1939 in Java. But she have a revelation, in fact, in arriving in Indonesia, and a revelation about dance. She write that when I first saw for the first time a dance performance at a temple, I say to myself, here at last is the living dance. And when I saw a Javanese dance drama performed at the court of Mangkunegaran Tujuh in Solo, I gasped into realization that here was a style uncompromising, effective, and magnificent. It's probably at that time also that Louis Charles Damé, Claire Holt, and Stutterheim meet, either when Louis Charles Damé was in Jogja and Solo, or either when he was in Batavia. Anyway, they become very friends. They travel together. They go to performance. But Claire Holt will learn classical dance. She will learn in solo first, under the direction of Prince Mangkunegaran. And then when Suterheim moved to Jogja, she will continue to learn dance with under the direction of Prince Aryo Tejokusuman, in a very famous school of dance, which was Credo Bexovirono, where she obtained a dance diploma as a student, and in fact it's her first academic diploma. So from 1936 to 1939, she will not only learn dance, but she will start to give lecture performance where she explained the principle of Javanese dance or Balinese dance and perform abstract of dance in front of public. And this performance, lecture performance, became very famous, very successful. So she will live in Batavia, but will travel a lot, going to Tokyo, going to London, going to Paris au Musée Guimet, where she gives lecture performance. This is pictures of photos of Claire Holt performing Javanese dance, and she will also come back to Indonesia. She was commissioned in 1939 to record, photograph, and collect information about village or aristocratic dance in Toraja, Nias. This is a photo of Claire Holt with a dancer in Nias in 1939. During a tour around the world, she will be in New York when the Second World War starts, and but she plans to come back to Batavia with her son to live with Suterheim in Batavia. Unfortunately, in 1940, Holland is invaded by the German, and the boat is cancelled. So she will never meet again Suterheim, which will die of a brain tumor in 1942. During the war, Claire Holt will be especially busy at the State Department, where she teaches Melayu, and like many scholars like Margaret Mead and Cora Dubois, Claire Holt will contribute also to a better understanding of the region. 1953, she left the State Department because of the increase of the McCarthyism in America, and she dreams to come back to Indonesia, which she will do. 16 years after leaving Indonesia, she will come back with the help of the Cornell University, and she will have the task to look at the historical role of the arts and the present relationship to social and cultural development in Indonesia. From a long journey in Indonesia, she will write a very important book, which is Art in Indonesia, a very important book which also is dedicated to Suterheim, of course. The book will be published in 1965, and when she comes back to USA in 1957, and for 10 years, she will contribute to structure a modern Indonesia study center within the Southeast Asia faculty at the prestigious Cornell University, Ithaca, New York. There she will teach, she will organize exhibition, invite troops for performance, translate Indonesian writers, write articles, invite a large number of Indonesian artists to the United States, including Umar Khayyam, Selo Sumardajan, But Mortar, Suardi Sudarsono, Afandid, and many more. In 1965, she created the Cornell Modern Indonesian Project, and she will have colleagues and students with big names of archipelago research, such as Benedict Anderson, Henri J. Benda, Frédéric Bunel, Herbert Freyst, Daniel Lev, and of course James Siegel. After her last trip in Indonesia in 1969, she will pass away in Ithaca in 1970 at the age of 68. Sorry, this is the book. And for a funeral, there's a complete gamelan playing, together with, of course, the Jewish prayer for the dead. And the text is read, which is here. She danced, she sculpted, she wrote books, she composed poems, she traveled, she dug in her garden, she adventured, she cared, she imagined, and she arranged. She opened 10,000 doors for 10,000 people on both sides of the Pacific, so that the cultural riches of the world might flow more abundantly. So let's finish also the conference. Maybe I'm going a bit over the time. About the correspondence. So these are a few letters you will see on the backdrop, few letters, original letters from this correspondence. So why does Louis Charles Damet start to rise to Clairol in 1955? And what do they have in common, in fact? Of course, we know already that they had one person in common, which is Stutterheim. Clairol was in love with her, and Louis Charles Damet was his master and his guru. So they were they were related around Stutterheim. And the very first letter of this correspondence, in fact, are Louis Charles Damet telling to Clairol that Stutterheim has passed away in 1942. She didn't know that her love passed away, because of course the communication were cut during the war. So Louis Charles Damet, in the very first letter, tell how Stutterheim passed away in a hotel in 1942. A part of this, they have definitely a complicity of a polyglot. Clairol, because she was living between Indonesia, Russia, Lithuania, and America. She could speak many languages, but they had a language in common, which was Russian. You can see here, it's not very clear, but because it's written, it's a handwritten. This is Moara Chiara in Russian, which means dear Claire. And the letters of Louis Charles Damet, this is a letter of Louis Charles Damet, are punctuated with Russian terms, because it was a way of complicity between both. Both, of course, will be very fond of music and dance. Both also will be self-taught scholars, because Clairol never had, even though she was working for Cornell, she never had any diploma, any PhD. And Louis Charles Damet also, a part of his diploma of language, never done any PhD or master. And of course, both were furiously anti-colonialist. This is a letter of Clairol. So there are 35 letters, and who give lots of details about what is happening in Jakarta. And the information in these letters, which are very different from the letters that I found in the archives of Louis Charles Damet, these letters are even more interesting, because Louis Charles Damet is not only giving information about what's going on in Batavia at that time, but is looking also in a very scientific way to confirm the information that he got. He's not sending gossip about what's going on in Jakarta, in Batavia. He's not only writing about what he reads in a newspaper, but if he tried to find information, he tried to confront also different versions of an event, and so in a very scientific way, he's sending a very clear and very precise information of what's going on in Batavia at that time. Which is also very interesting, that, I mean, all his life he was a scholar, but at the particular time, at this time of 1945-1947, Louis Charles Damet feels that he have to be engaged of what's going on in Batavia at that time, and he will write to Claire this. He will say that I will very much like to continue my scientific studies and not care more about politics than I did before the war. However, when I see the selfishness of most of the people here, I can't defend myself of thinking that something has to be done. It is not because of too much indifference on the part of the intellectual that the Second World War could have a start. Anyway, I'm convinced, especially after what we have seen here from the Dutch, that something should be done to avoid a new war, or with or without atomic bomb. The colonial age must be closed as soon as possible if you want a possibility to live together in a near future. So this is very, very special for Louis Chaldamé, which was very much busy with the inscription and other scholar matters. At that particular time, he feels that he has to get engaged. And how to be engaged? He will definitely be on Sultan Shahrir's side. He was, of course, close to Indonesian nationalist circles. And in a particular letter of the 2nd January of 1946, he describes to Clairol the composition of the first cabinet of Shahrir. And he precised that he knows personally 8 ministers out of a total of 15 ministers. So he knew them personally. He was very connected with these people working for the cabinet Shahrir. But this could be nothing. But he goes even further than that. That he will take actively position, organizing meeting of nationalists in his own home, on his own house. So in a letter, he described to Clairol what is trying to do at that time. He said, if I was anti-Dutch, I would have not even have given an opportunity to the Dutch to meet Indonesian at my house. What I've been doing since about November every week, in order that the Indonesian see there are also, even if there are only a few, progressive Dutchmen who don't want to fight to restore the old order, but want to understand the Indonesian point of view. In the beginning, few people came. Now I have most of the time 15 to 20 people. Of course, I never hide my feelings, and everybody who comes can hear after 5 minutes that I'm against any kind of colonial situation. It's probably a crime in this brave new world. So he was definitely very active at that particular time. And to finish, I would like to give a quote from one of the letters that you wrote again to Clairol. For me, the colonial question means about this: colonies should disappear not only because it is degrading for the so-called colonizer and the colonized. This is of course enough in itself, but also because as long as colonies exist, we can honestly not hope to come near to a world community. Louis Chaldamé was a kind of humanist, and to finish, there's a letter that he sends to Jean Filiosa in March 1959, saying, I am convinced that if the term humanism is to have its true meaning, there can be no questioning of considering only Greece and Rome, and that is necessary to bring in the Eastern cultures. So I think the portrait that I made of Clairol is very much of somebody which was very human, very humanist also. Of course, his position as an anti-colonialist show it better than I think. Then I will finish here. Of course, you have questions. They are welcome. I would like to first thank, of course, the Damé family for giving me access to these precious documents, and I felt really a need to present you today about Louis Chaldamé, and also to do the edition of these letters. I'd like to thank, of course, UF École Française Extrême-Orient for the coming publication of the letters. I'd like to thank the French Embassy, but in particular Marc Piton, who understand that the documents were important and facilitate a grant to work on it. And I'd like, of course, to thank IFI for giving me the opportunities to do this conference. Thank you very much.
Okay, warm applause for Jean-Pascal Elbaz. Thank you so much for accompanying us to get back in time to get to know better about this really amazing and inspiring figure of Louis Chaldamé. Okay, so for now, I believe some of you have already have a question to ask. I will open the first Q&A session for 2 person, I think. Any question? Or probably if you have like some thought about this topic, please. Okay, 1, 2. Okay. Please.
Yeah, thank you. Because no one asking, so I'm the one who asks. Anyway, just I want to say thank you to. If you spelling in bahasa Indonesia, we can say Louis Charles Damais. That's what we calling, what we read it. So I just want to thank you to him and to his family, and he's given what you calling what can I say? But I'm myself, I'm really thank to him that he give good contribution for Indonesia. But I just want to ask you regarding you saying that he has related to B.J. Habibie, what his wife or Mr. Louis? I just want to know about it. Thank you.
Yeah. It's his wife, yeah, of course. Yeah. His wife, Bu Tun, was related to Mr. Habibie. I forget exactly what is the link exactly. Maybe Louis could give more information about it. The family should give more information about this. But yeah, definitely they were related. And in fact, Habibie was the one who when the Lycée Français, when the French school in Jakarta became the Louis Charles Damé College, it was Habibie himself who came to inaugurate the change. I mean the lycée, not the lycée because it was there already, but the new name for the French school. So the information, maybe Louis could help me, no? Louis, can you help me to?
Ibu Tun dan ibunya Habibie adik kakak.
Voilà. Okay.
Oh, I see.
Sekali lagi mungkin tadi mungkin kedengaran.
Bapak
Pakai
boleh
mic.
pakai mic ya.
Ibu Tun dan ibunya Habibie adik kakak.
Yeah. It's more than a leak since it's a blood. Definitely very close. Yeah. Okay, so you have your sudah dijawab. Ada lagi?
Yeah, wait, there's one there.
Terima kasih untuk pertanyaannya.
The first language he studied was Hebrew, was it? Yeah. What did he have any Jewish blood?
Okay. The question is about the first he was not. It's not. I mean, it's not the first language. It probably maybe it's the first language that he studied. Yeah. At least I said that he was because he found a Bible in Hebrew. He wanted to translate it into French,
yeah.
And so he bought a French dictionary. He bought a Hebrew French dictionary to be able to translate the Bible into French.
Yeah.
But he was not from Jewish origin. No. Okay. Claire Holt was from Jewish family, from a Jewish family, but not Louis Charles Damé.
Yeah. Hello, my name is Julia Sirakusuma. I'm a writer. And first of all, I'd like to thank you so much for this incredibly fascinating account. It was a lot of hard work, and I can just imagine you coming across that box of that treasure trove. Oh my goodness, it's like Alibaba's cave. I happen to have been married to Ami Priyono, whose father, Professor Priyono, was very, very close friends with Louis Charles Damé. And in fact, I met Tante Tun very, very often because she came to visit my mother-in-law. because I lived with my mother-in-law for a while. And so, you know, and of course, Aji and Asmoro, I've also known since I married Ami, which is like 45 years ago. Oh, I'm giving away my age. And another, I mean, I just find this, because I'm a diplomat's daughter, and this transmission and transference of cultures is something that's really very much a central part of my life. And the other reason why I find this incredibly fascinating is because I would also like to, my background is sociology and politics, but as I become older, I'm more and more interested in history, maybe because I've become history also. One of the things, one of my cita-cita is to write a book about Ami and his family. And so I'm just so really delighted to meet you, because it will, I'm hoping that it will give me some links to Professor Priano. I don't know if you know his book MMM, which was translated from Javanese by Marcel Bonneff. It was translated from, I don't know how many translations from Javanese to French there are, but it was not many, yeah? But it was translated by
Marcel Bonneff.
Apa namanya tuh yang the Indonesian French Association in Paris.
Oh, Paris Jakarta.
Bukan. It's apa namanya lah.
Pasar Malam.
Yeah, Pasar Malam, betul. So, have you come across that?
Yes, of course.
Yes. Okay. So, I would love very much to link up with you, not hook up, link up with you to discuss history. You know, there can be many love affairs. I think that this was, in a way, a fascinating love affair between Claire Holt and Louis Charles Damé. Not that kind of love affair, the intellectual love affair. And I find that, I want to write my own mother is 87, and I'm going to write to make a pictorial before she dies, so, you know, a pictorial of her, because she was a diplomat's wife. And I said, Mommy, you contributed to the nation already, or also. And then, of course, I want to write about Ami. I don't know if you know Jennifer Lindsay.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, Jenny was.
So
oh my God, she was always harking at Ami to say, you should write your autobiography, but Ami is too freaking lazy. You know, and now I want to do it. Okay, so I hope we can talk after this.
Sure, it's a pleasure, of course. Thank you very much.
Somebody wants to know the name of the publication when he was in Saigon. He published something, a book or article, was it?
Most of the article that he published was published by the École Française Extrême-Orient. Most of them.
The name of the article. Or was it the book?
Which one? Sorry?
When he lived in Saigon, is there any publication or article?
In Saigon, he continued his study. So yeah, I mean, yeah, all the articles of Louis Charles Damé has been published by École Française Extrême-Orient. And in fact, the one book has been, I mean, in Indonesian, also the most important articles, in particular the article about Troloyo, the tombs in Mojapahit, have been published have been translated into Indonesian, and École Française d'Extrême-Orient, Ade is here tonight, so she can give information about it, but I remember I have the copy of the translation into Indonesian of these articles. But yeah, except the very first article of Louis Charles Damé, I told that he published articles in a review Jawa, and also his very first book under a pseudonym as Jean Dinet. The rest, yeah, all his works has been published by École Française Extrême-Orient.
Thank you, Jean-Pascal Elbaz, merci beaucoup. Gabriel Offert du lycée français, et Louis Charles Damé. Je suis ravi d'en connaître un peu plus de ce nom que l'on porte et que l'on a de quoi être fier d'ailleurs, d'avoir cet emblème, ce personnage qui représente une ouverture à la culture d'Indonésie. Sorry, I'm speaking French because we're in the French Institute, you know, and we have to balance. There was a lot of English, not much Javanese though. In fact, I have a question, but not exactly to you, Jean-Pascal, and I will be delighted to welcome you at the school on Friday, and that you can tell the students who are not here because they have to study, they have homework, but they will be at school, so they will have to listen to you and to know about Louis Charles. But it's more to my neighbor here on the left, Sudamaji Dame, Aji Dame, who I can call my friend, almost my spiritual father, because as you, he's taught me a lot of things, especially on this project I had on music, Debussy and the gamelan. And I wanted to ask Aji, how much of this science was going into the education? Was there any? Did you hear about anything about this epigraphy of history, or was the education about something completely different? What was education as from a father like Louis Charles Dame? What memories can you share that comes to your mind?
I'm speechless. It means that I have to tell you my whole life.
Maybe just a little flavor of what was Louis Charles Dame as a father.
Basically, he was very particular. He made me read a lot, for sure. And most of his articles I've read. And I could ask, in those days when he was still alive, I could ask him details about those articles.
And you, the children, you all speak several languages.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Did he speak French to you?
Yes.
Of course, yeah.
Okay. And your mother spoke Javanese or Bahasa Indonesia to you, to the children?
No, it was my mother I spoke Dutch.
See? How about culture, music, and all that?
That's a different thing, because my uncle Émile Dame, who was teaching at École Normale de Musique, I knew him rather well, and we often discussed about modern music. But that's a totally different world.
Merci.
Merci. Merci. Yeah, I forgot to say also that Ibutun, donc, the mother of Masaji, worked for the embassy. She was the secretary of the ambassador, of several ambassadors. She worked as the secretary of the ambassadors at the French embassy for many years until her pension, and she was among famous ambassadors. There was Monsieur Chesson. She was the secretary of Monsieur Chesson when she was working for many years at the French embassy. Yes, another question.
Another question, probably? In the back?
Maybe.
Okay. Okay, so probably from this side, is there any other question?
Otherwise, we can continue also outside and talk.
I have a question.
Wow.
Why do you keep on speaking English?
Because there is a public that speaks English. Yeah,
Only.
because we invite another
That's a very good question, yes.
that need to speak. So we need
Well,
to
then you should do some compromise. I
Yeah,
have
and you.
to understand that everything is through English.
Yeah, and you had.
It's both.
Yes,
So what language you want to speak? French?
Well, yes.
And you had to. I'm sorry also that you had to suffer listening to my French accent also.
It's better if you speak in Indonesian because kalau bahasa
Bisa
Indonesia
sih.
aksen Prancisnya nggak terlalu
Tetap. Yesterday I was giving the same conference in Bandung and I gave it in Bahasa Indonesia.
you should give it in the 25 languages there.
Unfortunately, I don't have the capacity of Michel Damé. Unfortunately.
Peut-être deux petites précisions.
Voilà.
La première sur la langue, parce qu'en fait on a hésité, hein. On sait que Jean-Pascal parle très bien indonésien, on a vu qu'il y avait assez peu de gens qui ne parlaient pas indonésien ici, mais on a vu qu'il peut-être il y en avait un ou deux. Et on s'est dit alors peut-être l'anglais. Alors il y a peut-être aussi des gens qui ne parlent pas anglais, c'est la dictature de la langue majoritaire. So sorry to use a language that is supposed to be common, that is maybe less common than we assume it is. Indonesia should have been the right one. We did hesitate a lot.
I was ready.
There is no perfect solution apart playing music to be very sure that everybody will share the same language. I wanted to add, because I forgot it, that this conference has been organized thanks to the École Française d'Extrême-Orient, you mentioned it, but thanks to IRD, research as a development research institute that has sponsored it as well. And it's nice to see that all are working together on the very idea that we are not coming from scratch as French academics working here, and that we have to pay tribute to and considering with respect the work that has been achieved before us. And it's very important because we are all inherited of these wonderful scholars. Jean-Pascal, you have opened one more doors on the Trans-Pacific, not on the Trans-Pacific, but the Trans-Oceanic cross-culture ID, because it has been mentioned as doors. I was mentioning bridges. But what is essential is to maintain the link. It's another concept, but everything that makes a connection is really, really crucial. And I think that this lecture makes a connection. You make the connection by yourself, by being here in Indonesia for so long, and a couple of French people here, or not only French, but foreigner, let's say, who are as Indonesian as it could be. And because we all want to be very Indonesian, because we are very fascinated by the Indonesian culture and want to not only to convey our own culture to Indonesia, but maybe even more to convey the Indonesian culture to French. But don't tell that to my hierarchy. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Jean-Pascal.
Terima kasih Bapak Stefan, terima kasih Bapak Jean-Pascal, terima kasih untuk semuanya. Thank you so much, merci beaucoup. And okay, I will just closing it with English and Indonesian a bit. Before we close this wonderful lecture, I would like to remind you that this conference is monthly. So next month we'll have another conference and we'll have another wonderful speaker and also really fascinating team. So this will be it. So we just save the date. Okay. And also, again, thank you so much for coming. Terima kasih. If you would like to continue the discussion, Bapak Jean-Pascal will be outside, and we also have provided refreshment for all of you. Once again, terima kasih, and with that, I will close the conference. Selamat malam.